Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for April 10th through 16th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 3 shows, I watched 2 movies, and I listened to 2 books. This past week I also celebrated my 36th birthday with a very special TBR, the 40 before 40 TBR, so if you missed that, please check it out because there's still a couple of slots on that TBR that I would love to fill. Essentially, I asked the internet what are some books that I should read before I'm 40, and I put them on a list and I'm going to read them, and I'm going to be vlogging them as well. In fact, as a delightful throwback, I'm going to be filming the very first clip for the vlog of that video that won't come out for probably 4 years after I film this video. Because I started one of the books on the list, haven't finished it, but I started it and haven't vlogged about it yet, so I need to do that. The first book that I finished reading this week is called Litsy. It was put out by Riot, and it's a bunch of literary and bookish cross-stitch patterns. That's because, if you were here last week, you know I've recently gotten back into cross-stitch after taking like a 25-year break because I used to do it as a kid. Not super often, but I used to do it, and I'm obsessed. I've ordered a bunch of kits, I'm making some things, I've made 3 things so far. I'm currently working on something I can't tell you about because it's a present for somebody. And then I'm waiting for a bunch of different kits to arrive to me so I can make those. I originally thought I was going to maybe try to copy down some of these and then make them at a later date when I had the supplies to do so, but I don't have graph paper and I figured it was just easier to order my own copy. This is a really good primer that explains some of the very basics of cross-stitching at the beginning, but then has 25 different patterns that you can use to make bookmarks or different bookish cross-stitches, and they're pretty cute. Some of them aren't my favorite, but obviously because I have 2 big passions right now, books and cross-stitching, this was a pretty big overlap. So I look forward to making some of these and probably showing them to you because I think my roommates are getting a little bit sick of me being like, look how cute this thing is that I made. Speaking of cute, the other thing that I read this week was She Gets the Girl. This is about 2 different girls who are going to the same university. They've just arrived, they're just trying to sort out their lives. One of them, Molly, has a lot of anxiety. She was kind of a loner growing up. Her mom was her best friend, and she has this big crush on this girl who is also going to the same university. She's had a crush on her for like 4 years, but they've never really talked to each other before, and she really wants to date her. On the other hand, we have Alex. She's had kind of a tumultuous upbringing because her parents fought all the time, and then her dad eventually just left, and her mom is an alcoholic, so she's been taking care of her the whole time, and she's really worried that something is going to happen to her mom while she's off at university. Add to this that the night before she goes off to university, she wanted to tell her girlfriend that she loves her and that she wants to try the long distance thing, but then they end up in a big fight, and basically she has to prove herself to her girlfriend. No, it's no secret right off the bat that this character is very manipulative and maybe she shouldn't be with her, but it does obviously take this character a long time to figure that out. These 2 girls meet at a party and Alex decides that she can help Molly get the girl as part of a project of showing, hey, I can just be a good person who's not flirting with people all the time by making this friend and helping her in her goals. Even though I could figure out where this was going to end up, I really enjoyed the journey of these characters getting there. I love seeing the dynamics with different background characters. I love seeing the plan that Alex just kind of slapped together for Molly. I loved seeing them slowly get to know each other. This was really cute. This was also written by 2 women who are wives to each other, and that just makes it even cuter in my opinion. On to what I watched this week, starting with the first half of the 5th season of Better Call Saul. We definitely had to do a recap before going into this because a lot has happened in the previous 4 seasons of the show, and I don't remember all of it. In fact, there was something that was just briefly mentioned in this season that I was like, wait, I forgot that was a whole thing, but I have vague memories of it now. I haven't looked it up, but I have to imagine that this is probably the last season of the show, just because the original show is only 5 seasons, but I don't actually know. If you're not aware of it, this is a prequel to Breaking Bad, and it follows Saul Goodman, or Jimmy as his legal name actually is, and essentially the up and downs of him being a lawyer and sometimes doing some nefarious things. I'm enjoying it, but we did get cut off halfway through the 6th episode because our roommates were watching a movie and we wanted to go watch it with them, so we had to pause and we'll go back to it. But in that episode, and I started a Twitter thread about this and nobody even noticed because nobody reads my Twitter threads, but the one thing that annoyed me the most in the season so far is there's an opening of Mike being in a library and this librarian just shelving books spine down for no reason. Like, she just shelves a couple of books and then goes to help him at the desk. And I was just like, There's no reason for you to be doing that. There aren't hold slips coming out of the top of that. You should have shelved those books properly. What is this? Do you even know what a library is, madam? I also watched the 2-part season finale of season 4 of Coroner. I really like this show. A lot of dramatic things happen in it, but it really comes down to these characters and the family or friendship dynamics that I just love the most. However, I really don't know what to feel about the last episode. Does this mean there's no more Coroner? What even happened? Like, I can't explain it to you. So if somebody can explain what's going on with the last half of the last episode of this season, please do. Even though it was the reunion show, I also stayed current on this week's episode of RuPaul's Drag Race. Since the season is so long and my memory for specific queens on specific seasons is really terrible to begin with, it was nice to see who was actually on the season at the beginning because I've obviously forgotten a lot of them. It was also kind of fun to have them rehash every time everybody had beef with Jasmine Kennedy because a lot of people just yelled at her for a lot of reasons. Like, yeah, she talks a lot, but she's growing as a person, it's fine. I also enjoy that they discuss the fact that 4 of the queens since the show was taped have come out as trans. That's something I already knew because it's popped up in my news feeds, but it's nice to have an acknowledgement on the show itself, because only one of them actually talked about it on the show itself. Going into the finale, I have no idea which team I'm on. I usually can't pick a team for the finale, and it makes it more difficult when I have 5 options instead of 4. On to the movies I watched this week. We watched the 3rd of the Cornetto trilogy, that is The World's End. This is definitely my 3rd place pick of the trilogy if I was going to rank them. However, that doesn't mean it's not good. There are some definite callbacks that come up in it. The twist is very shocking and very random, but then you just kind of have to go with it, and eventually it doesn't feel like it was so different from the other movies. If you've never seen it before, a group of friends graduated and decided that they wanted to do this pub crawl that takes place in their very small town, where you have a pint in each of the 12 pubs ending up at the World's End. When they tried this when they were lads, they did not make it all the way through, and one of them decides to get the group back together again so that they can try to do it again. However, when they get back to their small town, things are a little bit weird, and it goes from there. I've always really enjoyed the role reversal between Nick Frost and Simon Pegg in this one, because obviously in Shaun of the Dead, they are kind of the opposite types of characters, and it was fun to see the dynamic but flipped. The movie that interrupted us watching Better Call Saul is Serenity. If you're not aware of this is the movie that was made after Firefly was cancelled. For me, the plot of this movie has never really been the thing that I'm drawn to. It's the fact that I get to see these characters more, because the characters have some excellent lines and character work in this movie. I also kind of like that it just seems like an episode of Firefly, but really, really epic and long. There were definitely some loose threads that had to be tied up, and they were, and then obviously we can't get away without at least a few people dying, which they definitely did. And watching this made me want to watch so many other things that some of these actors happen to be in. First audiobook that I finished this week was 5 Little Indians. This is a book about victims of the 60s scoop. In this book, we follow 5 different people that happen to go to the same residential school, and then we see them throughout their lives after that. I think that trying to explain any of their storylines in much detail is a little bit spoilery, so I'd rather you just go into it and see what happens. What I really liked about the writing in this is it felt very real, and you can see the stereotypes that have been given to Indigenous populations from the other side of it and humanize it, and see that a lot of what has been attributed to that community has been forced upon them, and we've just ignored the fact that we've done it to them. This is a very difficult and very necessary read, so if you're not a person that knows anything on this subject, you need to read this book. The other audiobook that I listened to this week was The King of Infinite Space by Lyndsay Faye. Picking up this audiobook, all I knew about it was written by Lyndsay Faye, and I really like her works. Of course, I'm completely blanking on the name of the series, but I read a 3-part series from her that took place in like 1920s New York, and it was excellent. Except for if you listen to the audiobooks, the 3rd book is narrated by a completely different person and he doesn't do the voices the same, and it's weird. That's just a long-winded way of saying I didn't look up a synopsis. I knew nothing about this besides it was written by Lyndsay Faye, so I went into it, and it took me about a chapter and a half to realize that this is a Hamlet retelling in modern day. This also takes aspects from different Shakespeare plays and brings them in as well, and I really enjoyed identifying those because I'm not the person that's like, Shakespeare, yes, it's the best thing ever, but obviously I've had to read a lot of it for school. So little things like Leah has this scarf that has strawberries on it, and I'm like, well, that's from Othello. Or there's a character named Ariel, and I'm like, well, that's a character name from The Tempest. Oh, and did I mention this one is also queer? Because it is, and I loved that. In this reinterpretation, our Hamlet character is named Ben. His father's family made their fortune in oil, but his dad has actually been running this theater company in New York for a very long time and has refused to use family money to fund it. And it was always something that he was very, very proud of. Ben actually grew up kind of backstage at the theater. That's also where he met Leah, which is our Ophelia character. You come to realize that they were engaged, but they no longer are, for a reason that you will eventually find out. Additionally, his best friend is Horatio, and he's been living in the UK after something happened between the two of them that basically drove him away, but he comes back as soon as Ben needs him. As it turns out, Ben's dad has died and his mom has married his uncle, and that's just so messed up that he just really needs some support. The language used in this was incredibly beautiful. Ben is somewhat of a philosopher, and I believe also studied something to do with physics. A bunch of that language went right over my head, but what I caught was just absolutely brilliant. I should also mention that we see this story from these 3 different perspectives, so if you are listening to the audiobook, you have 3 different narrators. And one of them is Michael Crouch, and I always adore him in any audiobook he's ever in. I should also say that right from the beginning I kind of figured out what was going on with Leah, but the book did a really good job of making me think that I was wrong until it was revealed that yes, in fact, I was right. So, if you've read it, you know, let me know about it down in the comments, mark your spoilers. I absolutely very much enjoyed this. I cannot recommend it more highly. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!